Hello, my name is Delilah Cordova, visibility creator here at Omnipresence Studios. We expose the world to our interviewees' unique products, services, and books, and we also help in their journey to go from undiscoverable to visible in a digital world. I am currently on a mission to conduct 100 author interviews, and we're talking about all things books, from publishing to new authors, and don't forget marketing. I would like to welcome you to our show, Marketing and Coffee, where authors come to get inspired and experience. Hey authors, you finished your manuscript. What do you do next? If you would like to learn more about being featured on my show, go to marketingandcoffee.com. And without further ado, meet our next awesome author. It's Delilah Cordova here, and I am here again for another awesome author interview. Now, as you all know, I am halfway to meeting my goal of 100 authors. So if you have friends who are authors, or you have family who are authors and they need help, developing some interview skills and getting their name out there, then my audience is the best audience for them to be first on. So send them my way. Today I have with me TJ Miller, and he has an awesome suspense story, mystery story that he is going to tell us about, and it is his first novel. So, TJ, go ahead and take it away.
All right. Well, first and foremost, thank you for having me, and definitely thank you all to everyone out there that's taking a listen to what we're talking about here. The book in itself is called Murder by the Collar. Again, that's Murder by the Collar, and you can definitely get as much information about it as possible at www.murderbythecollar.com. And I'll let you know that the book in itself is it's a police procedural, basically about a young lady, Bridget Love, who is a Nashville homicide detective. And she's got to figure out a murder because a young man named Sam Crystal, who was actually on his flight upward as far as his career in gospel music, was murdered right after the biggest night of his life. And what happened was after being killed, Bridget has to come in and figure out who did it. And everyone from the pulpit to the parking lot is suspect with Miss Bridget Love. So that's the story in a nutshell. There are a lot of really cool, suspenseful things that go on in between and in betwixt. There are a lot of very colorful characters. Most of my characters are they're in the Deep South, in places like New Orleans. The story itself, again, takes place in Nashville, but a lot of the characters come from places like Nashville, Monroe, Louisiana, Memphis, Tennessee. So it's basically a good group of characters and a lot of people who have very, very colorful lifestyles. So that's the book in itself. All right. And if there's any questions, please feel free to shoot them at me. You can also check out my Facebook page at MBTC. It's at MBTC, the book, and that's capital MBTC, small characters for the book. Okay, so that's at MBTC, the book, which is my Facebook page for Murder by the Collar. Okay, all right.
Hey everybody, I'm back. was listening on my phone as he was going along. Technology, y'all. So, yeah. I hope you guys are so excited to hear what TJ has to say today, because he has better internet connection than I do. First off, is how you came along to have this handlebar mustache, because it's so unique.
I'm just, I've always, actually, you know what? If I don't know, how many of your listeners or viewers are old enough to remember the Spinners, and especially the Spinners in the early days. But one of the cats, and I can't remember his name, but one of the cats had a handlebar mustache. It was the guy who sang the high falsetto part, and I was always intrigued by that, and I just always thought it was cool. So when the opportunity presented itself and it didn't look too weird, I went for it.
Yeah, I think it's awesome. I think it's unique. But the thing is, it's something you don't typically see African American males wear it like that. So you're rocking it, especially with the dreadlocks. Yeah, I like it. I think it's cool.
Thank you.
So, do you happen to have a copy of your book with you?
I do indeed. This is it. Again, it's called Murder by the Collar. You can definitely, get a copy at the website, www.murderbythecollar.com, as well as Amazon and what have you. So, you can you can go to all of the places where books are sold to purchase you a copy. And the good part about getting it on my website is that I give a little nice autograph to it, kind of personalize it for you. You can definitely take a look.
Well, I wanted to talk about your book cover just a little bit and, learn more about how that design came to be, and about if there's like any type of sometimes people hide things on their cover. So I wanted to see more behind the cover, about the cover.
I've got a
cover in the making.
Out in LA named Mark Hill, and his company is called Mark Hill Creative. That's a shout out, Mark, though. But at any rate, yes, I spoke with Mark Hill, and we sat and talked, and what the vision would be, and basically he also helped on the website. There's a YouTube trailer for the book. So if you go onto the website and you can click the trailer, he also helped me to shoot the trailer for the book. Nice. So it's a great trailer on YouTube. Mark helped me with the design. Now there is just this little speck of blood right there on the priest collar, or on the preacher collar. I don't know if you can see that online there, but that always kind of makes it.
I thought it was the door that was like somewhat open and there was light. That's why.
Got it. No, it's the collar, from the ministerial collar, and which gets to the name Murder by the Collar.
Oh.
Yeah.
That is. That's why, you wouldn't have pointed it out. I would have always thought that was an open door.
An open door. Okay. I can see that. Yeah.
But that's just me. Everybody knows I'm crazy. So, what literary pilgrimage? Geez, that's a hard word. What literary pilgrimages have you gone on?
Well, what I did was, my journey started, from a different space than probably a lot of writers. I came from entertainment corporate world, where I was in the record business for 20 plus years. Worked for some great companies: Motown, PolyGram, Capitol Records, Warner Brothers. So, and then as the music business changed, and all of you guys stopped buying CDs, and the download world came in. A lot of people, were asked to go in a different direction. So I fell back on my own creativity as a music major. I was a classical music singer for a while. And so I fell back on my own creativity and, remembered the fact that I'm a storyteller. And I've always been a storyteller, even since I was a little kid. So I kind of fell back on that. There was some great stories in my head, as well as collaborating. My wife actually helped me to come up with a theme of this particular story. And, so then we just started writing, and was, found myself going through a lot of classes and a lot of courses. I took courses at, Writers Guild of America. In LA, there's the Writers Store that have, a lot of really good, renowned writers coming in, giving classes and giving courses. So I just immersed myself in trying to learn about the craft, because one of my mentors once told me, any man that would not learn his craft is a fool. So I didn't want to be a fool about this. Right. I did know that I wanted to write. And I didn't want to walk around and saying, oh, I want to write a book one day, without learning the craft of book writing, writing and prose and the characters and character development and, POVs and, all of that sort of thing that I didn't know anything about. So I wanted to learn about that. And those are the things that I did. And I'm still taking classes. I've got a couple courses that I'm looking at taking coming up, soon. So, it's still a learning journey.
Nice. And you know what? That's so smart, to continue learning as you're doing things. I'm still taking classes that, I'm trying to finish up my master's degree. You're always ever learning, exactly. Especially with marketing too. It's always changing. You always have to keep reading and keep beating the trends and learning new technology. Like 3-4 months ago, it was like I had to learn chatbots. If I don't learn chatbots, I'm not going to be able to stay in the trend,
Sure.
So I think that's awesome. I think that's great advice, especially when you said that, the best, writers are, the best people know their trade, right? Right. What did you say it again?
Any man that won't learn his craft is a fool.
Any man that won't learn his craft is a fool. Thank you.
Yes.
But also, you just floored me, because I didn't know you had such an elaborate background with working. So you did audio. So that was your main. It was like for soundtracks for movies and stuff like that, right?
No. I worked on sales and marketing for all of those record labels. I was blessed to become vice president of sales and marketing for Warner Brothers. Senior director over at Capitol Records, and so it was a marketing role, and dealing with record stores and doing retail marketing and that sort of thing.
So then you already got a foot in the door when it comes to getting your book sold here, hey?
Well, I will say that experience did help me to land because initially I did the book first as a digital copy first, and then came back around and did the physical. So I did the actually first digital only book signing at Barnes & Noble here in Texas, because generally they want you to have physical product. And so we talked about the advantages and what I could offer them for having this sort of event at the store to try to help sell Nooks. So so that experience did help, has helped, and it has helped me to learn a few things as far as the things that I do with my website, having a landing page, creating that CTA, making sure that I'm trying to connect all of my social medias, my Twitter, my Instagram, the Facebook, and it does it takes some time. It's not something that just
building that platform.
Exactly.
Building that author platform. Yes. Exactly. CTA, guys, he's talking about a sales funnel. He's talking about your landing pages with just your call to action and stuff like that, just for those who don't, because there's a lot of newbies. So this is excellent. So he is one of the oldest marketing experts in the business. So If you got questions, you might want to pick his mind while I got him on here. No, because selling in retail space, especially like you have to have that experience of that real deep psychological stuff, or understand the psychology behind a sell, because you're not behind a computer making sales. Like, you are building, retail stores and creating sales systems the old-fashioned way. So those ways are not out the door. They're actually way better to listen to, because you guys understand more about psychology and about how different ad copy feels, and how putting things at eye level sells better, and you know what I mean? The attractiveness of a album cover. You know what I mean?
Absolutely, and that's why I wanted to make
it's more ingrained.
What we did was, and I'll tell you what we did was, when he first created the first mock-up, I would take the sheet of paper, regular size sheet of paper, take it to the bookstore and put it next to all of the books in the bookshelf. Then stand back to see, okay, does this fit, or is it lower quality as far as just the idea, the the concept of our book cover. So I would go and just take that step back and say, okay, what's not fitting? What's off? So there should be a little writing there and not too much writing there. I don't need to put a book right there on top of my book. Just a little bit of writing there. Okay, my name should be this size, and just really juxtaposing it against a lot of other books and authors of the same hue, which for me was like James Patterson and Dennis Lehane. Because it's it's a murder mystery, so those are my guys as far as who I like to read myself.
Right, and judging those based off of what other people, you're not reinventing the wheel like that. Right. You're just getting it to fit into that genre and fit into the group and make it. If those best-selling books are there and they became bestsellers based off of being bought off the shelf, then you want to be in the same contingent, right?
Right, and that went down to everything as far as color, the color of the words, the color of the the black background with the white and the yellow and the red. That was not by accident or happenstance. We painstakingly went through that to make sure that it that it fit.
Yes. Wow. See, you're so smart. I like him already, you guys. He's so awesome.
It was just, and that's just those are the things that aren't rocket science. You know what I mean? It's some of it's just really not rocket science. It's it's like, okay, if it's all on the shelf, then do I fit? Because I want to be on the shelf. So do I fit on the shelf? And if I don't, okay, let's go fix it.
Right. And a lot of authors don't think about that though. Especially new authors, they don't. They don't think about that. They just think about like, oh, well, this is what they don't really understand the quality that their book cover needs to be in order for it to, get sold, even if it's on a digital copy, it still has to be of quality. It's still, because if you're going to, cookie cutter a book cover and put it on, a self-publishing website like everybody else is doing, then of course you're not going to be able to sell like you think, That's my opinion. So yeah, I love it. I'm going to ask you my next question here, and that is, what is the most unethical practice in the publishing industry?
I would love to say I know, but I don't, because I'm not published yet. But as far as the self-published game, it's very similar to the some of the independent music. A lot of it is so the same as far as independent music and independent labels are concerned. For prime example, I utilized bookbaby.com to self-publish my book, but they also own cdbaby.com, which they do the same thing. Now they will, and you have to know that they will make your book and they will house your book, but they will not market your book. So, you've got to get out there and hustle and market on your own. But other than that, I think the thing was, once I guess my name and my information got out, all of a sudden I just started getting a slew of phone calls and emails from, all of these other independent publishing companies that,
Nice.
were just promising this, that, and the other. And then, you go to, and you don't know who to deal with if you don't have someone to talk to about it. And I didn't. So you end up going to Google and just asking Uncle Google, hey, tell me the reviews. So, you started reviewing all of these companies, and then you just start seeing some of the most horrible stories, that these companies have done. Books didn't come out right. They weren't completed. Ink wasn't, it's just some of the craziest things that I saw. And it's like, wow, how are these people still in business, and why are they calling me? So
Right.
for me, it came down to like 2 or 3 companies. BookBaby was one, Ingram Sparks another, and Amazon's, I can't think of their company, but CreateSpace. So basically boiled down to those 3, and I chose BookBaby mainly because of the cost, as far as what I got for the cost that I spent, because there was a POD, purchase on demand, that they had that the others did not have, which is what actually allowed me to be on the shelf at stores. So, and stores could have the opportunity to purchase on demand, when someone calls in and says, hey, do you have Murder by the Collar on your shelf?
Yeah. Yeah. So do you think that, with the publishing, that it was better, that you think it was better to be a self-published, or do you plan in the future to, to get a publisher, a big publishing house, to come along and pick you up? Because I heard you say, like, there's misconceptions of the little like, to me, those are like little publishers. I'm talking about like the big publishers where people are in there spending money to get on the bestsellers list,
Right. I'm going to speak it into existence that I will get picked up by a large publisher, so that they can give me, that nice royalty, so that I can sit and write comfortably, and make sure that, all of the basic needs and bills and all of that sort of things are paid, so that I can sit and write the next book. Because there's a sequel to this book that I'm writing now, and then there's a sequel to that book.
Right.
So, basically, my main character, my protagonist, Bridget Love, I'm looking at her to basically become a female version of Alex Cross.
Who that is? Who's that?
Alex Cross is the main detective in all of the Alex Cross stories from James Patterson. So there, I think, are like 23 versions, 23 of them out now, something, or might be even more. And Dennis Lehane, wrote a lot of really good murder mystery type novels that became movies: Mystic River, Gone Baby Gone, The City, and those sort of books. So that's kind of the vein of Murder by the Collar. Initially it kind of looks like it's about the church, but it's more the church as a backdrop. Because basically, if you think about it, 30,000 people in one church, you have no idea what the person sitting next to you did last night, or what they're capable of doing tomorrow. So I wanted to go from the standpoint of writing the separate stories of the individuals that just happen to go to the same church. Kind of similar to how The Sopranos was not necessarily a show about the mob, but it was about a family that just happened to be in the mob. So that's kind of the direction that I wanted to go in.
Okay. Yeah. I always be thinking that when you go to the church, like, I know he was in it, they come, it's like, I think I saw him last night, but I'm not going to say nothing because I was out too. I saw what I saw. No plan.
I understand.
So you said, I believe you said, correct me if I'm wrong, that your book isn't published yet?
It's self-published, but not, not picked up by a larger publisher. So it's just via myself,
Okay, I want to
bookbaby.com.
clarify that because it's like, wait a minute, that didn't make sense. So does writing energize or exhaust you?
I would have to say energizes, mainly because of I write with very colorful characters. I've known some very colorful people in my life, so I write with very colorful characters, not just thugs or not just good guys and not just bad guys, but people who are people with a twist because they have families and they have things in their lives that makes them tick this way and it makes them tick that way. So I try to really delve into who these people are and give a sense of realness to those characters. So sometimes it's been said that my characters will just come out, sit down, and talk with me, and tell me what they want to do next. So, because sometimes I don't know. Because when I started writing this book, I didn't know who the killer was. I didn't really,
Wow.
I really did not know who the killer was until literally past midway of the book. So it didn't just, I just let it direct me instead of me trying to direct it.
That's odd. That's weird. So wait, because to me, in my little mind here, I'm thinking like when people write their books that they have it all outlined and pieced it all together somewhere on a wall, and then they just bring in, huh? So
I had a lot of notes.
I know it's all. Say what?
No, I was just going to say I did have a lot of notes, and I would go to them, but then things would change. You would think that something's going to. It's just like life, in that that you may have a schedule right now. It's Tuesday today. You may have a schedule for Friday, but then something happens, and it alters that that scenario that's going to happen on Friday. So I kind of write from that perspective. Okay, if I think that this is going to be the end, but somewhere in the middle, something happens that alters that, then I have to go with that. I can't just, try to force my ending, based on the fact that something just happened that would not allow this same ending to happen like this, because it wouldn't be real.
Right. Right. Okay.
So.
That's so interesting. And then, I like all my other authors who have came on. You're not the first one to say that their characters keep them up at night, or their characters talk to them directly. And
Absolutely.
I don't know if you guys are just no play. But when your characters talk to you,
Mm-hmm.
what kind of experience is that? I really want to know, because I think I have something like that in the sense of when I have inspiration for when I'm doing graphic design or websites or something like that. All of a sudden I get a sprig of information, like that's how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? But how does that work?
There's no format to it. I mean, I could be walking and I see something crazy, and then Portia, one of the characters in the book, may tap me on the shoulder and say, you know what, I would do that. But if I did that, then I would do this after that, and then I would do this, and then I would do this. And I'm like, for real? You would do Portia? You would do that? Wow. And so, so it just depends on, what the situation is. I mean, I try to look at a lot of things for my muse, because it's a, murder mystery. I look at a lot of First 48. I look at a lot of, police procedurals for the timing. Being a musician, timing is very important. A groove is very important. So, once you get into a certain groove, there should be a certain rhythm, I think, to,
Right.
To the book. So, to the story. So, once you catch that rhythm, then, your character may tell you, hey, you know what, that whole 2-page thing you got me doing based on the rhythm of everything else, I wouldn't do any of that. So now I have to go back and take all of that out. So, it just kind of depends, a lot of different ways. Yeah.
It sounds like you have multiple personalities.
That's why I have to write and I have to sing and do stuff to get those things out, because otherwise, I'd be in a rubber room somewhere bouncing up against a wall.
I know it's not. I can see the realness of how it works, but I'm like, you sound real creative. I wish I had characters who would talk to me, because I get lonely, but it's okay. I got 5 kids. Talk to me.
You're not too lonely.
So, I'm never alone. I'm never alone.
Exactly.
What are common traps for aspiring writers?
I think the biggest one, that I see at my level, because obviously, different writers are at different levels. They see different things, but at my level, it's just hearing people say, "I want to write a book." Hearing people say, "I want to write a book," and they never write that book. They start and they never finish. Or the other one, I think that plagues them, especially for right. Especially for perfectionists, is that they start writing and it's not perfect. I've seen people who have full manuscripts, but it's not perfect. So they wanted to go back and redo this and redo that. I think working on the corporate side of the music business and dealing with artists, I saw how debilitating some artists can be to themselves. So that part, that executive part starts to push the creative side of me to say, okay, you know what? As Tupac used to say, we'll get the next one perfect. Let's get this one done. And that's basically the mantra that I used. Like I said, I first put out a digital copy, and there were a couple mistakes. So, we went back and we cleaned those up, and then put out the physical copy. But I did not want to be the one saying, I'm going to write a book. Or if, when somebody comes over to the house for the barbecue, I'm going up, pulling out my computer saying, hey, look at this book I wrote. It's like, no, you haven't wrote a book. You got a manuscript, or you got a bunch of stuff on paper here. And I wanted to finish. I wanted to finish, and I wanted to make this a business, because again, the corporate side of me, after, all of the layoffs in the record business, I wanted to maintain a creative self. And so the music that's in this book, you can literally hear the music as you read, because there's so much music, from the fact that the young man was a gospel music superstar, the record label that he was signed to, His Glory Records, Portia, who is a record executive. And so, obviously there's just a lot of music, in the story. So, and the antagonist, C.J. Babineau, one of the Babineau brothers, is a great singer, along with being a minister himself. So, it's an interesting read. I think there's a lot of music, and one thing that I have been blessed to hear is that it's an easy read. To the point of, when people start, they've not had a problem finishing it.
Nice. That's awesome to hear. Because I'm the type of person, like, I love to read, but if I can't get into it within the first chapter, I'll never finish the book. Like, Anne Rice is really my favorite author. And back in, I think it was like 2015 or so, she came out with her one book called Lestat. It was just Lestat. And I couldn't get into it. Like, all other books, like, I devoured them. But this one, it just took so long. And then I still haven't finished it. It's just sitting there. So that's great. That's great to know that people are, able to consume it and read it at a pleasurable rate, because if it's not written well, it's hard to read. It's hard to focus. But it's really like like you get lost in the book so easy if it's really good off the bat. Like it catches your, like within the first couple of chapters. If it catches you there, then you get good money. Yeah. Like I can finish this. So does a big ego help or hurt writers?
I think you have to have a big controlled ego. And that's because, you're basically putting your artistic soul on the shelf, or on the table for people who you don't know and who don't think like you, who don't look at the world like you do, to consume it. And if they don't like it, which everyone won't like your project, and that's okay. But you can't let that stop you, or you can't let that slow you down, or from the standpoint too, you in your inner circle, and not necessarily your artistic circle, but your other circles that you have in life. You want to be excited to them that hey, I wrote a book, and they're like, yeah, all right, cool, I'm about to head to the grocery store, so. So you have to be able to push through all of that, and even once your project comes out, and some people purchase it just for on the strength of who you are to them. Some people you give copies to, and they never read it, but that again is also okay, because everybody, some people are just wanting to support you, and some, by supporting you, that means, oh, I got a copy, and one day it'll make sense for me to hold up my copy to say I got a copy, and you have to be okay with that. You have to have ego enough to keep moving past that, and continue to to go for what it is you goaled out for yourself and planned for yourself.
Yeah. As long as they say that it is still your copy from the library, you good money.
And where I am is, however you got a copy, I'm, hey, I'll take it. Hey, you got it.
I support you, man. I got my copy at the library. I still.
See, and that, to me, that means
I just think it's still sitting on the bookshelf.
That means the library had it, so I'm good.
Back in the day when I was like a teenager, too poor to go and buy a book, I'd be in there like putting books like.
Yeah.
All right. That's why they gotta put metal detectors on books, because I'd be taking them all. I have so many dang books. But anyway, shh, don't tell nobody that. They're gonna be coming looking for me. Do you think someone could be a writer if they don't feel emotions strongly?
That question, it kind of waffles in my head, because I would want to say, you can't, and no, you can't, because a part of what it is you're doing, especially, and it does depend, I guess, on what kind of book you're writing. I mean, if you're writing a textbook, a math textbook, and and it's all about the numbers being right and your Excels and all of that, maybe you don't need a lot of emotion there, but I think more than emotion, you need imagination, and just psychologically, the imagination does sit in the emotion wheelhouse. So from that perspective, I would say yes. I don't think that I'm a too emotional person myself. I'm not too emotionally moved, but I do have a big imagination. So, and I think that the imagination, is a part of, the emotion. But again, it depends on, like I said, the type of book. If you're writing, the type of books that I write, or, love stories or self-help books and those sort of things, yeah. If you're writing a, math, counting, accounting for business 101, and you're writing the textbook, you just got to have your figures right,
Yeah, I feel like but to me, you should have a lot of writers, who are really strong. They don't feel too much emotion in what they're writing, because I think that if you got too emotional with what you're writing, that would become difficult, especially if you're delving into really hard scenes. So you would have to be more of like a doctor in that perspective, where you kind of like numb, but you're able to portray that scene the way it needs to be. You know what I mean?
Sure, absolutely.
Yeah. So do you want each book to stand on its own, or are you trying to build a body of work with connections?
Body of work with connections, definitely what I'm trying to do.
Body work with connection.
Right after this one, there is a sequel called Sinners and Vigilantes. Right after that, there's The Psychology of Sin. So, we want those to be connected. Now, I am looking at other stories, because I'm currently also writing a stage play, which of course, and that's kind of why I call myself a storyteller instead of just an author or a writer, because I try to fit different stories on different platforms, book, stage play, television, movies, and that sort of thing, even though those haven't quite happened yet. Again, I am speaking them into existence today. So,
The law of attraction.
Yeah,
Law of attraction. You gotta believe.
Exactly. Absolutely. Absolutely.
There you go. I love it. I love it. So you know what? I'm gonna speak it into existence with you, because from what I'm hearing, I think we need to get his books on the screen so that I can watch them, because I have no time to sit and read a book. I read them all.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So Delilah wants to see this.
There you go. Let's get it.
So what was an early experience where you learned that language had power?
Probably through music. I was a boy soprano back when I was like this. I'm doing like this. You can't see it. This high. Growing up, I grew up in the Catholic Church in Louisiana, and I was a boy soprano. And just to see how people would, be captivated at the words of the song and the fact that we were singing there. And then, of course, when I was also a kid, I would, I would tell these stories, and I was mystified sometimes at the fact that people would just kind of stand around and listen to these stories that I was telling. So sometimes I would have to augment the story, at least in my head, because I'm thinking, okay, I got a crowd of, 16 kids standing around me, and I'm 11 years old. So I can't let them down. So I've got to augment my story to make it bigger and bigger. So, just from that standpoint, and just being able to be blessed to be able to stand up in front of people and sing or talk or deliver a speech or a sentence and that sort of thing. You see how people will actually listen. I'm actually, and my wife gets on me about this, but I'm actually sometimes more comfortable standing in front of 1,000 people speaking than I am one-on-one. Because at that point, it's just that, you realized how much what you got to say is being listened to at that particular moment.
Right. Right. And you know what? You just keep getting more interesting and more interesting. So you just told us that you are Catholic, or you grew up Catholic. And
well, I grew up in I grew up going to a Catholic school, so I was, among thousands who would go to Catholic church Monday through Friday, because we went to church every day. This was Little Flower Academy. Give a shout out to my elementary. Little Flower Academy in Monroe, Louisiana. And so we would go to church every day. But I was Baptist. So on Sunday, it was Baptist church. And of course, my mother was really strong in the church. So it was Catholic church by day, Wednesday night prayer meeting, and Thursday night choir rehearsal, and then we would have prayer meeting with her group, at the house, one day a week. So it was, there was a lot of church. It was a lot of church going on around me at that.
That's so interesting because I mean, in a way, it's both Christian, but it's two way different ideologies, right? Like,
I mean, Catholic, really,
like
they aren't. They aren't, but they are, and it really depends on who's delivering those messages. And I guess I was fortunate enough to have mediators and people who were in front of me who were delivering those messages that really did, because this was a little Black Catholic school in the hood, so you can't go too far away from what that particular community listens to and uplifts them. So even though it was Catholic and the message was the same, which was Christ lived, he died, he rose again, God loves us, love for all, and all of that. And sometimes the music was a little different because in Catholic church we were singing Ave Maria, and then you go to the Baptist church, so it was from that perspective, but as far as the message itself, it was the same. It was the same message of Christ. Christ lived, Jesus Christ. He lived, he died, and he's coming back.
Oh, you know it. But then I have an author who is and I'm learning a lot about Louisiana doing her marketing. But so are you Creole or Louisiana or Cajun French?
None of the above.
What are you?
I'm just old, brother from Monroe. I mean, all of the real Cajun, the one thing, one good thing I do say about Louisiana is that, like a lot of states, they, have bipolar, opposites from the north to the south, like Southern California is polar opposite to Northern California. Same thing with Dallas and Houston. They're polar opposites of each other, and so forth and so on. North Florida versus, Southern Florida. Louisiana is kind of the same. It just gets more intense the further south you go. So as far as the Creole and the Cajun, most of that is in the southern part. Monroe is in the northeastern section of Louisiana. And we've got our accents, we've got our crawfish, we do our gumbo, and a lot of the other typical things that you've heard about Louisiana. But when you really get into Geechees and and all of the the other Cajuns and Creoles and all that's more at the southern tip of Louisiana, down New Orleans, Lake Charles, Lafayette, Bogalusa, Opelousas, and those places. But I love those stories. I love the colorfulness of Louisiana people, and there's definitely some colorful characters up north as well. So yeah.
So were you born in? I said Acadiana. Were you born in Louisiana, or where do you originate from?
Actually, I was born in Houston, but quickly moved over to Louisiana, literally months. So it wasn't like I'm from Houston. I'm from Monroe, Louisiana. I left a long time ago, but that's home. Louisiana's home. I went to school in that area. I went to Grambling State. The place where everybody is somebody, hashtag I thought you knew. Had to get that in. So it's all about Louisiana, Northeast Louisiana for me as far as my upbringing.
And then from there you moved to
Nashville.
Either New York or California, right?
Well, I went to Nashville.
Where?
Right after college. Nashville, Tennessee. Yeah, and that's kind of how I decided.
I like Nashville.
Yeah, that's why I decided to write about Nashville, because I wanted to bring an urban story to the table, but I didn't want to use the typical urban cities that people use: Atlanta, Chicago, Detroit, LA, New
Yeah,
York. Okay,
yeah.
there are more cities than those,
Yeah, I know.
and more
Yeah,
cities where there's an African American culture that people don't realize, and a lot of people don't realize that there are three HBCUs in Nashville: Tennessee State, of which I went to a graduate school there, Go Big Blue. Also, there's Fisk and Meharry, all three major HBCUs, actually all in the same area. So there's a
right.
lot of that in my book. Also, as far as the story is concerned, the bishop's wife works at Tennessee State University here in the book as one of the characters. So we got that.
Interesting. That's so interesting. Yeah, such a crazy backstory. You need to write your book. You need to write your book.
And I would have
This is
to,
so
I have to
interesting.
augment stuff, though. I would have to augment. So, and if you start augmenting, you might as well write fiction. So,
No, no, I don't want to augment it. I want your story. I want your story. So, yeah. How do you balance making demands on the readers with taking care of the reader?
um, I try not to make the reader, go out of their comfort zone as far as trying to figure something out. What I did was, when I was in California, we've got neighbors who are police officers. So I interviewed them death as far as, what is this and what is that? Because I didn't want to start just throwing out police jargon that I picked up off the internet and I didn't know what it meant myself. And I wanted to even,
Right.
utilize, street jargon, because all of my, readers aren't street people. So I wanted to keep it, I wanted to stay away from, some of the atypical things. So I do put the demand on them to think a little further than, okay, so it's a black story about drugs and about, the preacher sleeping with all of the women in the church and all of that. So I just totally purposely stayed away from all of that. So from that standpoint, I'm asking the reader to, let's go a little further. Let's, peel the onion back a little deeper, to go further into, some real people and real people that you may know. And someone that you can relate to, because I know that, in any mega church, in that same church, you've got a millionaire who's sitting next to somebody who's wondering, how am I going to get through tomorrow? I
Yeah.
don't have to eat tomorrow, and they're sitting right next to somebody who's outside driving a Bentley, who's got more money in their pocket than they've had in the last 2 years in the bank. So
Yeah.
I wanted to make it believable from that third person who's looking at the two of them going, wow, life, from that standpoint, I wanted to make it comfortable for the reader, to understand. And even if they're not, church goers, but even if you go to a football game, it's the same thing. Somebody's there who's gifted some tickets, who would never in a million years have, the money to go to a game, sitting next to someone who's got enough money to burn their tickets because they're mad at the player on the field, and
Yeah.
then you start asking yourself, okay, this person does this, so who does that? So then when you say who does that, then you go, okay, well, what does that person do? And what drove that person to do that? And then what drives the people that drive this person to do that? And so then you just start really getting into, and that's when all of the voices start really getting loud in your head, because it's like, okay, wait a minute. Everything that you've done, somebody helped you get there.
Yeah.
And then there were other people around those people that helped you. So, how far deep into the story do you want to go? How far can you go and keep it at a, palatable state? And then, if you want to go multiple platforms, how far can you go and still make it attractive to, a larger platform like a television series or a film?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's got to sell. At the end of the day, it's got to sell. I have my own company now, which is a marketing label services company. And my company motto is it starts with the art, but ends with the sale. Because it does with the art, music, be it, a book, be it canvas, but, it's nothing to you if you don't sell it, and it's just a nice little hobby if you don't sell it and if you're not out there trying to push it to sell it.
Exactly. Got to put in the legwork. Got to make it happen.
Yes.
Got to have a good team.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Cool. So we have had the most awesome interview, and I've learned so much about you. It's been so great.
Having me. Great.
If you guys are just now coming on or catching the replay, or you just watched the whole thing, make sure to comment and tell us what you liked. #replay for me. Also, if you have questions, we do monitor these lives afterward. So go ahead and ask your questions, and I will, me and TJ will probably be back and we'll answer them. But TJ, where are you at right now? You're in California?
Dallas, Texas.
Dallas, Texas. I heard you say it. I got confused. I was like, Louisiana?
I recently moved here. Yeah, I recently moved here from Los Angeles. So, I know, right?
From Los Angeles. See, Mom, I'm originally, my mama from Compton. So.
Okay.
But I'm originally from the Mojave Desert. That's where I was born.
Okay, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
California is in my heart. But I'm in North Carolina, so.
California.
There you go. What's psyching? But anyway, I can't even do it. I haven't been there so long. I can do Star Trek.
Star Trek. Okay. Live long and prosper.
All right. But you guys, please #support your authors. Make sure you guys share this out. Watch it, ask questions. TJ here, he is a marketing expert, it seems like. So if you have questions, make sure you drop them below. And then don't forget to go and grab that book, Murdered by the Collar, TJ Miller. Right there beneath his name is the website.
Murderedbythecollar.com.
There you go. All right, y'all. Y'all have a wonderful evening.
Peace.
One moment. #support your author by leaving reviews. You can visit this author's book at the link above. Make sure to subscribe and ring the bell to receive our notifications.